The Trophies of Lies, a Lost Compass. Natalie sat on a creaky wooden chair in their spacious kitchen, her hands trembling. Before her, on the light oak table, lay Mark's phone, like a trophy from an invisible battlefield. The screen lit up her face with a cold, bluish light, and only one question echoed in her head. How? How could she have been so blind? The years of their marriage seemed like a solid foundation, built on mutual trust and love. They had met in college, where Natalie studied art and Mark studied business. He had always been her reliable lighthouse, her anchor in the stormy sea of life. He supported her through the toughest times, believed in her talent when she doubted herself, and together they built the family she had always dreamed of. Now, that foundation was cracking. It all started with little things she initially attributed to stress or tiredness. His phone was always near him, as if it were an extension of his arm. If he left it on the table, it was always face down. When a message came in, he would grab it so quickly, as if it were a matter of life and death. Natalie had seen him smiling while reading something on the screen, but as soon as she glanced over his shoulder, his face would turn serious, and he would hide the phone. Finally, her intuition, which Mark had so long forced her to doubt, won. While he was in the shower, she took the phone. Her heart was pounding, but she knew she had to do it. She found messages that made her blood run cold. Flirting, suggestive jokes, all directed at someone named Amber. The most awful was the message he sent twice, as if testing her reaction. "Don't be touching my product now." Natalie knew this was not just a set of words, but part of a game between him and Amber. She saw how Amber replied, "Already did." These words, like a cold shower, washed away all his excuses, which he had so skillfully delivered that she began to doubt her own sanity. He hadn't just made a mistake, he had consciously chosen this path. The next morning, Natalie called her best friend Allison. Allison had always been her rock. She worked as a lawyer and knew how to think logically, unlike Natalie, who always relied on emotions. "I found the messages, Al. He's cheating," Natalie whispered into the phone. There was a long pause. "What are you going to do?" Allison finally asked. "I don't know. I need proof because I know he'll deny everything. I'm going to dig." Natalie felt her anger transform into cold determination. She became a detective in her own life. She started with the simple stuff, his phone and computer. She found deleted messages and browser history. Mark was careful, but he didn't clean up every trace. Natalie found even more messages where he said he would be working late or fixing the third shift, even though that shift had been running smoothly for ages. Every time he told her about delays at work, Natalie now knew he was lying. The strangest clues Natalie found were in his Google Maps. He claimed he had to take long trips to solve issues with suppliers. One day he said he was going to a meeting in a nearby town, but instead Natalie saw that he drove 20 minutes in the wrong direction, stopped at a gas station, and immediately returned. Then, after returning to his town, he stopped at another gas station to refuel again. On the way, he stopped at the house where his friend lived, whom he constantly visited, sent money to, and ordered food for. These weren't just random meetings. It was a well-established secret life he was living behind her back. As Natalie dug into his lies, she started noticing other, more obvious things. His behavior towards her changed drastically. He became irritable, nitpicking every little thing, blaming her for everything that went wrong. She remembered how he would enter the house after a phone call, and his cheerful mood would immediately turn sullen. He became indifferent in their intimate life. She recalled how, after sex, he would immediately turn away and fall asleep, which was completely unlike him. Her friend, Alex, who worked with Mark, once called her to discuss work matters. In the conversation, he mentioned that Mark had been acting strangely lately, always hiding in his office to talk to someone. This only confirmed Natalie's suspicions. She realized that Mark wasn't just cheating, he was living a double life. Natalie started collecting physical evidence like a trophy hunter. In his car, she found newborn diapers, McDonald's toys, and a card from the gaming center, even though their child had long outgrown all of these things. In her hallway, she found a handmade bead bracelet. Under her bed, a diamond ring. In her work things, which he brought home when he started working remotely, she found a gray rhinestone mask and earbuds. But the most horrifying find was a hair tie with blonde hair in his office. Natalie and their daughter both have dark hair, and there hadn't been a blonde person in their house for years. The last straw for Natalie was the scratches on his back. She asked him about them, and he tried to make excuses saying they were from the boxes in the warehouse, but Natalie knew that wasn't true. She knew these scratches were marks of passion. She couldn't take it anymore. She called Allison, and they agreed to meet. Natalie showed her all the evidence she had collected, and Allison advised her to get a lawyer. "You have to be strong, Nat." Allison hugged her. "You don't deserve this." Natalie returned home. Mark was sitting in the living room watching TV. His face was relaxed. He suspected nothing. Natalie entered the room, and her gaze fell on his phone, which lay on the table, face down. He didn't know that her intuition was stronger than his lies. She decided it was time to lay all her cards on the table. "We need to talk," she said. He looked at her, and his face showed annoyance. "What is it?" he asked. "You're cheating on me, Mark. I know everything." And on the table, next to his phone, she placed a bag of evidence. He tried to make excuses, but this time Natalie didn't let him. She showed him all the proof. His face turned white, and he hung his head. "Why?" she whispered. But Mark said nothing. A few weeks later, Natalie and Mark began the divorce process. Natalie realized she was no longer a victim. She had become a victor. She was free and no longer dependent on his lies. Her path was full of pain, but she knew that in the end, she would find her own way to happiness.